In 2017, a fairly unexpected development on Twitter captured the attention of the internet. The following is a writer and illustrator by the name of Adam Ellis's allegation that a deceased child's soul was haunting him.
My apartment is currently being haunted by the ghost of a dead child, and he's trying to kill me. He started appearing in my dreams, but I think he's crossed over into the real world. I was experiencing sleep paralysis and saw a child sitting in the green rocking chair at the foot of my bed. He had a huge misshapen head that was dented on one side. I did my best to draw it. For a while he just stared at me, but then he got out of the chair and started shambling towards the bed. I couldn't move because I was paralyzed. I have sleep paralysis fairly often and it sucks. Right before he reached my bed I woke up screaming. I had another dream a few nights later where I was in a library and a girl came up to me and said,
"You've seen Dear David, haven't you?"
I asked, "Who?"
"Dear David, you saw him. He's dead. He only appears at midnight, and you can ask him 2 questions if he said Dear David first. But never try to ask him a third question or he'll kill you."
Then David came back in another dream in the same situation. I was in bed and he was sitting at the rocking chair near the window staring at me. In the dream I say, "Dear David, how did you die?"
"Accident in a store.
"Dear David, what happened in the store?"
The shelf was pushed on my head."
"Who pushed the shelf?" David doesn't answer. I realize that I've asked a third question which I'm not supposed to do. At that point, I woke out absolutely terrified. Over the next couple of days, I googled deaths in the city, but I can't find anything about a kid named David dying in a store. I even tried different names: Daniel, Dylan, Devin, nothing. A few weeks go by without incident. Sort of randomly, the apartment of mine is vacated, and I have the opportunity to move into it. It's a larger apartment, so I'm thrilled. Another month or two goes by, and I sort of forget about Dear David. I think he lost track of me because I moved upstairs. But lately, something strange is happening. For the past 4 nights, my cats gathered at the front door at exactly midnight and just stare at it, almost like something is on the other side. Last night, I got a weird feeling and looked out the peephole and I'm dead sure I saw movement on the other side. When I opened the door and turned on the hall light, nothing was there but my cat seemed unnerved, bushy tails, etc. And that's where I am right now. Dear David found me. I don't know what to do, but I'll keep you updated. Update: for the 6th night in a row, my cat walked over to the door promptly at midnight and stared at it. What is going on? Okay, so I took a photo through the peephole cause I'm too scared to open the door. I feel like I saw something. I couldn't tell, so I mustered up the courage to open the door. Nothing was out there, but I took another photo where the banister meets the shelves hiding on the stairs. I wasn't sure if it was a smudge or something like that, so I took a second photo from inside. There was something out there. I deadbolted the door and got in bed because I don't know what else to do. I can still hear my cat meowing at the door. August 10th. I used a sound app to record my apartment last night. It makes individual recordings each time it hears something. There were 33 recordings. Most of them are pretty vague. A couple of them are passing cars and the like, but there are 3 that I'm interested in. The first is a snapping sound and what seems like a single step. It's odd because I didn't get out of bed all night. This one is weird because out of 33 recordings, this is the only one that has that strange electric sound throughout. These happen between 2 to 3 a.m. I have no explanation for them. August 13th. So, a weird thing just happened. Take it with a grain of salt. I bought a Polaroid camera this weekend because they're fun and dorky. I decided to take a few photos around my apartment. I took a couple of my living room and bedroom. That's the rocking chair I first saw David in. They're pretty unremarkable. Then I went into the hallway and snapped a photo. The Polaroid developed completely black. I even ripped open and destroyed a fresh pack, so see if it was just an undeveloped Polaroid, but they start out white. I also thought maybe I accidentally covered the lens with my finger, so I took a photo while intentionally covering it. The photo on the left is me covering the lens with my finger. The one on the right is my fully lit hallway taken just after midnight. So this could be nothing. I'm not sure what to make of it. I'll record myself sleeping again tonight, and I have Sage being delivered tomorrow. Okay, one last thing cause I wanted to double check. Here's a couple video of me taking photos.
Okay, here's my living room. And I'll leave that there.
And then the hallway.
Okay, now I'm gonna take a photo of the hallway just to show you what that's like. And as you can see, the first one has already developed. So let's see what this one does. It's gonna take a minute. But it is developing black. So I don't know.
It came out totally black again, for a second time. Honestly, I don't know why I'm still fucking around with this camera. There might be a logical explanation. Someone told me to take photos from farther away, so I tried that. Once with my iPhone and once with the Polaroid. Left is with my phone, right is with Polaroid. The hall light was on both times. Why is it pitch black each time with the Polaroid? August 15th, Sage did not work. I haven't dreamed about David in a few months, but he appeared again last night. In the dream, my bedroom was filled with hazy smoke, but I could see David sitting in the chair across the room. He was smaller this time, almost shrunken. He didn't do or say anything except look at me. Anyway, it feels like a bad omen. August 16th, apparently, strange faces have been showing up in some of the photos I take. A couple people have pointed this out, which I don't have a real explanation for. There's also this, which seems less weird, but still odd that it resembles David. Make of it what you will. The second one doesn't alarm me so much, since it seems like it might be a reflection, but that first one gives me the creeps. August 21st, all these ghosts have been spooky, but this past weekend was the first time I actually felt unsafe in my own home. On Friday night, there was supposed to be a huge storm. In the end it passed, but that night was bizarre anyway. I fell asleep pretty early. I was incredibly tired for some reason. I had a dream that night where David was dragging me by the arm through an old abandoned warehouse. I'm not sure why I didn't fight back in the dream, or how he was strong enough to pull me, but that's dream logic for you. It was a creepy dream, but I didn't think much of it when I woke up. I took a shower, and then I noticed something. I'd woken up with a huge bruise on my arm. Now look, maybe I injured myself the day before, and my arm was hurting during the night, which manifested as a dream. There could be a totally logical explanation for it, so I brushed it off. I went to get coffee, which I do every weekend. When I walk to the coffee place, I always pass a food cart repair depot. It's always incredibly busy, especially on weekends. I've lived in the neighborhood for over 4 years, and the place has always been jam-packed with carts getting serviced. But today, it was completely abandoned. The whole warehouse was totally gutted and empty. Well, almost empty. I went inside to look around, because I was astonished that this place was suddenly empty after all these years. Basically, the only thing in the entire warehouse was a single green chair. On my way back from coffee, the warehouse had been shuttered. It's remained shuttered since. The chair, my bruise, dreaming about an empty warehouse and then passing by one. It gave me the creeps. Needless to say, I didn't sleep much that night. Too many strange things are happening, and more frequently, so I dunno. Anyway, it was a strange weekend. I'm going on vacation soon, so we'll see. August 28th. So, I moved the green chair out of the bedroom a few weeks ago. It's been in various parts of the living room ever since. I should probably get rid of it, but I'm not sure that would have any effect. Also, I'm going on vacation to Japan in 3 weeks, and I keep thinking if I can make it to my trip, this will all end, as dumb as that sounds. David lost track of me once when I moved, so maybe if he believes I've left the apartment again, he'll leave me alone. Anyway, last week I bought a pet monitoring camera so I can keep an eye on the cats while I'm overseas. It's basically a nanny cam that connects to the Wi-Fi, so you can check in whenever you want. It runs 24/7. It also alerts you to sound and movement via an app. I blacked out the company, since I doubt they want to be associated with ghosts. In any event, I decided to test it out this weekend. I was away from home one night, so I set up the camera before I left. My phone pinged periodically through the evening, alerting me to the cats running around and playing. Normal stuff. Then, around 11, it alerted me again that it detected motion, but when I checked the feed of my apartment, I didn't see anything. So I watched the feed again. Still nothing. I watched it a third time, and finally noticed something. Watch the chair. I knew it couldn't be the wind, because I haven't had the windows open at all this summer. I have AC and like to keep it chilly. It was unnerving, but there wasn't anything I could do about it right then, so I flipped my phone off and tried not to panic. About half an hour later, I got another motion alert. Here's the feed of that alert. If you missed it the first time like me, look above the shelf. It's a little turtle shell that I hung on the wall. Since I've been back home, I've been too nervous to turn the camera back on, and today has been pretty quiet. That said, I feel really uneasy. I put the chair in the hall. I hope nothing else happens tonight. September 5th, it happened again. I've been leaving the nanny cam on 24/7. It records every time there's movement or sound, as you know. I was going over the feed from this weekend and noticed some weird stuff. During the night on Saturday, while I slept, it recorded the cats in the living room. It seemed pretty unremarkable at first. But then, after a few moments, Maxwell freaks out and jumps over something invisible. I don't think it was a bug or anything. Maxwell doesn't react like that with bugs. He just eats them. Something spooked him. What's more, I almost never get bugs. I've seen maybe 3 in all the years I've lived here. Anyway, the next night, the camera recorded a couple more strange videos. Specifically, it recorded Maxwell doing this on and off for hours. He'd sit up on his hind legs and peer around the room, as if looking for something or looking at something. This is odd behavior for him, and I can't come up with an explanation for it. Every night before bed, I go through the same routine. I feed the cats, brush my teeth, and lock every single one of the 3 locks on my door, because I'm paranoid. Don't ask why my door has 3 different working locks, plus what looks like the remainder of a break-in. I'd prefer not to dwell on it. Anyway, the other night I was getting ready for bed as normal. I went into the kitchen to get cat food. I hadn't even gotten to the pantry when I heard a loud crack. It's better to just watch the video, since the Nanocam records everything now. At first I thought maybe it was one of the cats who'd knocked it over, but they were both in the bedroom. As you can see, I slid the lock immediately after realizing what was going on. I also checked it about 4 more times before bed. The thing that fell was this little knitted cactus in a terracotta planter. It's totally busted now. I live right next to a subway line, and my whole house shifts and shakes every now and then, which could explain this. I always get in my head making excuses for whatever's happening. I'm still skeptical, but now every little sound freaks me out. I leave for Japan in 2 weeks and it can't happen soon enough. September 16th. I've been having so many nightmares lately. They're way more intense than my usual dreams, too. I don't know if it's because I'm stressed, or if it's something else. This afternoon I took a nap and had a dream I haven't been able to shake. In the dream, I was laying in bed, and rolled over to face the other direction. On the pillow next to me was a severed head with a bloody spine attached, snaking down the bed. The head was staring right at me, somehow still alive. It had this huge smile plastered on its face. Horrified, I screamed, "What happened to you?" The head smiled even bigger.
It feels great.
The head groaned. After that, I woke up. It was dark outside by then. Everything was quiet. Other dreams have been just as strange. Things like dark figures staring in my windows, even though I live on the 2nd floor. Stuff that makes no sense in relation to what I've been experiencing in real life. After that dream about the head, I've been feeling uneasy all night. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I decided to go for a walk, if for no other reason than to get out of my apartment. I went to a bodega a few blocks away to get a snack. On the way, I had to pass the warehouse that was boarded up a few weeks ago. It's actually on the way to everything. I pass it twice a day just to get to the subway. I hurried past it, since it freaks me out now. At the bodega I got some Doritos and a seltzer, then made my way back home. When I passed the warehouse a second time, I heard a dull thunk from the other side of the shutters. I froze in place, but there was no other sound after that. I probably should have just continued on, but curiosity got the better of me. There was a grated window next to the doors, about a foot above my head, too high to see into. So I thought to myself, okay, I'm gonna hold my phone up to the window, take one photo, and then run for my life. I made sure my flash was on, positioned my camera lens through one of the grates, and snapped a photo. I almost thought I saw movement when the flash went off, but I couldn't be certain. The light bounced off the grates and was pretty blinding. I couldn't even look at the photo. I just ran all the way home. I was too jumpy to look at it for a while. I just ate my Doritos nervously. When I finally did look at the photo, here's what I saw. It seemed to be a different part of the warehouse, maybe an office. There was a bunch of old insulation and what looked like a filing cabinet and a ripped-up leather desk chair. Then I noticed something else. In the upper right corner, something that looked like a face. The more I stared at it, the more it started to look like a nondescript blur. Now I can't even be sure what I'm seeing. Maybe I'm too deep into this and my brain wants to see David when he's not there. But here, I messed with the filters on my phone a bit. Tell me this doesn't look like him. October 2nd, it's my last full day in Japan. The past couple weeks have been pretty peaceful. I have people taking care of the cats, and they say they've been doing fine. This morning I went for a long walk around Sapporo. I never really plan my vacations. I like to wander a lot and see what I find. I came across this statue in a park. I couldn't find out any real information about it online, but it was weird and pretty. I was taking pictures of it from different angles since it's cylindrical. I moved around to one side and almost dropped my phone at what I saw. It felt too similar to be a coincidence. I felt dizzy staring up at it. This kid with the dented head. I don't know. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe this is nothing. It doesn't feel like nothing. Anyway, I have to pack for my flight home in the morning. It'll be good to see the cats again, at least. Weird things have been happening with the electricity in my apartment this week. First, 2 bulbs have burned out in the hallway in less than a week. At this point I've just left it alone, rather than get a ladder again. But the strangest thing has to do with the backlight on my TV. It's an LED strip that plugs into the TV itself via USB. The TV has to be on in order for the backlight to be on. But last night the backlight was flickering on and off by itself. I noticed it just sometime before dawn, when I woke up and went into the kitchen to get some water. I'd barely gotten back into bed again when I saw a faint light come on in the living room. After a few seconds, it went dark again. I went back into the living room and stood there watching the backlight go on and off, for at least a few minutes. It was bizarre. Eventually it stopped, and now the backlight doesn't work at all. It's only a couple months old, so it shouldn't be dead already. Anyway, I couldn't get back to sleep, so I went to the diner near my apartment. It was the only thing open at AM. I had eggs over easy with ham. It was too much ham, but the eggs were pretty good. When I got back home, the sun was starting to come up, so I figured I might as well shower and go into work early. I showered and brushed my teeth, then headed into the bedroom to get dressed. As I passed the front door, I thought I heard a faint scratching sound from the other side. It was so soft I wasn't sure it had really happened. I went over to the door, but I was too scared to look through the peephole. I couldn't bring myself to actually put my face that close to the sound, so I opted to take a photo through the peephole instead. Since there's a skylight just outside my door, the hall was awash in faint yellow-green light. I snapped a couple photos. At first the pictures didn't seem like anything, just blurry nothingness. But as I analyzed it and started noticing things, part of a face, an ear, and an eye staring right back at me, I think maybe it's time to get someone else involved. It's obvious this isn't going to stop until I do something. I'm just not sure what that is yet. I'll let you all know when I figure it out. Sorry for the radio silence the past couple weeks. First, I had a friend come over to do some cleansing stuff. She did the whole apartment and the hallway. A lot of self-proclaimed professional mediums have reached out, plus about a dozen ghost hunter TV shows. I've declined them all because I don't really want strangers in my house sensationalizing what's going on. So instead I had a friend come over and cleanse the place. And for about a week or so, it seemed like it worked. Things appeared to go back to normal. The cats weren't gathering at the door anymore. I stopped having dreams. It was starting to seem like it was over. Then, one morning last week, I was walking to work and passed the shuttered warehouse as usual. This time, all the metal doors were wide open, sunlight pouring in. The warehouse was still mostly empty, except for one thing. There was a hearse parked near the back wall. The warehouse has been closed for over 2 months. I have no idea why it was open that day. Nobody was around. It was weird, but I tried not to think about it. It's not all that strange to see a hearse, I guess. Like they have to park somewhere. I tried to put it out of my mind, and the next several days were uneventful. But something else happened last night. It was around 11 or so, and I was watching TV on the couch. I went into the dining room to get a drink from the fridge and noticed both the cats sitting by the far window, staring up at it. The window looks out onto the roof of the business next door. I glanced out the window but didn't see anything. I figured that maybe there was a mouse in the wall or something. I shrugged and grabbed a beer from the fridge. As I went into the kitchen to get the bottle opener, I noticed something. There's a window in the kitchen, which looks out onto the same roof, and someone was standing on the roof, staring at me. I immediately ducked down. I reached up and flicked off the light switch. I peered over the windowsill but couldn't see much. My phone was in my pocket, so I grabbed it and took a photo. It was blurry and dark, but I swear someone was out there. I tried to take a better photo, but the figure had disappeared. I closed all the blinds and made sure the door was locked and then drank like 5 more beers until I was too drunk to be scared. But now I feel like I'm back at square one. I'm sure it was him. He's not going away. I don't know what to do. November 6th. It's been about 4 months since the first time I dreamed of David. In the dream, I saw him in a chair again. I don't have the green chair in my room anymore this time. It was a recliner I've had for years. He was staring right at me, just like the first time. Again, I felt paralyzed and could barely move. But this time, something was different. I still felt mostly immobile, but I could squirm just a little bit. I felt more alert. I could move my hands somewhat. David glared at me, and I dreaded what I knew was coming. He was going to get out of the chair and come toward me, like before. I had to do something. I keep my phone next to me on the bed, and I somehow managed to get a hold of it. I thought, if David is going to kill me, maybe I can at least get evidence on my phone. I started snapping pictures in the dark. Sure enough, he crawled down off the chair and began shuffling toward me. He moved slowly, like it was a struggle for him. I felt terrified, but I kept taking photos. David limped closer toward me, never taking his eyes off me. Soon I was face to face with him. He started muttering something, too quiet for me to understand. I watched as his eyes rolled back in his head, until they were all white. I tried to writhe away from him, but I could barely move. I stared in horror as he began crawling up onto my bed, still murmuring something. For everyone asking, yes, I'm alive. I've been on the quiet side because there's something I'm trying to investigate and I'm not sure how to yet. I'd rather not tweet unless I have something substantial to share. It's also sort of hard to explain the logistics of what I'm trying to find out, but I'll do my best. Basically, there's a part of my apartment I'm just now learning about. At least that's what I think. To refresh your memory, I live in a duplex. I used to live on the first floor, and now I live on the second floor. It's a long boxy building that looks like this. The other week, I was tweeting the most recent update from the living room couch. About 30 seconds after I'd sent the last tweet, I heard a thump directly above my head, as if someone above me had dropped something on the floor, which is impossible, since I'm in the top apartment. There's also no way to access the roof. There aren't any ladders on the outside of the building. The only way you'd get on the roof is through a skylight in the hallway. There are no trees in the immediate vicinity, either. It definitely wasn't pipes, either. It was distinctly the sound of something falling to the floor. My building is old and makes lots of noises, but this was a new sound and it startled me. So I'm thinking, is there some secret crawl space in my home? I look all over my apartment, but I can't figure it out. So I go into the hallway, and that's when something dawns on me. There's no real way to ease into this, so I'll just say it. There's a mysterious hatch in my hallway. I've always known about it, but I just assumed it opened directly to the roof. It's really high above the stairs, so I always figured it was impossible to access without some sort of fancy professional ladder. I took this video so you can see how high it is. I see that hatch every morning when I leave for work and think nothing of it, but this time something dawned on me. It can't lead to the roof, because it's actually below the roof. I'm about to spring some simple math on you, so I apologize in advance. First, the skylight is flat with the roof. I checked Google Earth to make sure. The hatch is about 3 feet below the skylight, meaning there's about 3 feet of empty space between the two openings. I think maybe the hatch leads to a short ladder going to the roof, but even if that's the case, the hatch is level with all the ceilings in my apartment. That means there's 3 feet of empty space all over my apartment. I was ready to explain this away for a few reasons. One, it might just be some sort of insulated space that all residential buildings have. I'm not an architect, so what do I know? It didn't seem relevant enough at the time, so I decided I wasn't going to mention it here. But over the past week and a half, I've been hearing more things above me. A few days after the first sound, I heard a similar thump while I was in the kitchen. Then last night, I heard something small clink to the floor and roll about 6 feet before stopping. Something is going on up there. Maybe it's a raccoon, but maybe it's not. I also can't get over the fact that the hatch is in such a weird, inaccessible place over the stairs. I need to investigate. I'm just not sure how right now. I guess I'll try to buy a long pole off Amazon to see if the hatch even moves. I might have to buy a construction ladder. At any rate, that's why I've been MIA for a minute. I'll keep you posted when I figure out how to get up there. Okay, I bought a pole. If the hatch is movable, I'll either shell out for a ladder or call my landlord to investigate. November 8th, a lot has happened in the last week, but I was away for Thanksgiving, so I'm just now able to write it all down. The noises from the ceiling haven't let up, but the pole I ordered didn't arrive before I had to leave for the holiday, so I didn't actually get it until late Friday night. I planned to investigate the next morning and went to bed. I'd barely fallen asleep when I woke up to an incredibly loud crash above me. It sounded like someone had dropped a bowling ball. I bolted upright in bed and immediately felt strange. There was a weird energy all around me. I can't explain it. After about a minute, I heard another crash. I briefly thought about grabbing my shoes and booking it, but that would mean passing under the hatch, and that seemed like a bad idea. So instead I just listened and waited, though I'm not sure for what. The crash happened again, and then again probably 15 times in a row, followed by a long silence. Then I heard a smaller, creaky sound from the hallway. In my mind I registered it as a footstep, but it really could have been anything. I stayed still, but there were no more sounds after that. I lay back down, still tense and nervous. But I must have fallen asleep at some point because I woke up the next morning and everything seemed normal again. I got dressed and left to go get a bagel, same as every Saturday. As I made my way down the stairs, something crunched under my feet. I looked down and noticed a pile of debris on the stairs, directly under the hatch. It looked like dirt, but I couldn't tell for certain. It could have been old plaster or something. I glanced up at the hatch and noticed something else peculiar. The edge of something was caught in it, barely poking out. It's hard to see because it's so far up. At that point, bagels were the last thing on my mind. I went back upstairs and grabbed the pole. I set my camera on the coat wardrobe at the top of the stairs and hit record, just to make sure it would be caught on video if a demon burst out of the hatch. I jumped out of the way and practically fell down the stairs trying to dodge whatever it was that fell. At first I thought it was a dead squirrel, which would honestly explain a lot. It hit the steps and bounced down to the first floor. I went upstairs to get my phone and collapse the pole, since it's so long and unwieldy, then went back downstairs to investigate the object that fell. At first I wasn't even sure what it was. It was a dingy, faded black. I picked it up and realized what it was. It was a small leather shoe. I hustled back upstairs and texted my landlord. I told him I thought there was something in the crawl space and asked if he could investigate. He said he'd come by later with a ladder and check it out. A few hours later my landlord was on a ladder, shining a flashlight into the crawl space. I stared up at him, half expecting something to grab him and yank him into the darkness. He angled his flashlight all around and finally saying, "There's nothing up here." But then he was like, "Oh, wait." I watched as he reached up into the emptiness with his free arm, and when he pulled it back he had something small and round in his hand. He climbed down the ladder and handed it to me. Again, I wasn't quite sure what I was looking at. It was smooth and shiny and at first I thought it was an old piece of candy, but it was cold and too heavy to be candy. After a second I realized it was a marble. It was so worn that it hadn't registered as a marble at first. Its shape was also sort of weird, with a little bump on one end. My landlord seemed unbothered for the most part. Okay dude, and he told me to call him if I heard anything else. I went inside and headed to my office to see if I could figure anything out about this marble that somehow made its way into my ceiling. I had nothing to go on, and in short I didn't really learn much, but I did figure out the bump on the marble, I think. Apparently in the early 1900s they made marbles by hand and cut them with big metal scissors, which would mean the marble is probably really old. Anyway, now I have a decrepit old shoe and a marble sitting on my dresser. I guess this is the new normal. December 12th. Sorry for the long break. I haven't been feeling great the past couple weeks and haven't had time to update. There also wasn't much to say for the most part. I wasn't sleeping well, and I was having weird dreams, but they were vague and hard to describe. I'm sleepy all day long, and I've been getting sudden bouts of dizziness. I chalked it up to always having earbuds crammed in, and made a mental note to get my ears checked. Other than that, things were pretty quiet. I sort of fooled myself into thinking that finding those items in the attic somehow ended all this. Not that that would make much sense. But last week something started to happen. Late on Wednesday, I woke up with a start and felt something strange, like something had just been watching me. I turned on the light, but I was alone. Still, there was this intangible feeling of badness. Everything felt wrong, sort of like when you have the flu and you wake up at night and can't really tell where you are for a minute. It was a feeling I'm used to. It always accompanies David. People tweet at me a lot saying he might just need help, but I'm certain that's not the case. Every time he shows up, I feel a palpable sense of malice. There's what I felt that night. Malice, dread, but still, I was alone, and I was so tired, I wound up just going back to sleep. I've been so exhausted recently I can barely function. The next night, the same thing happened. I woke up suddenly, feeling like I had just missed seeing something. Like a candle had just gone out and I could still smell it. I thought about using the pet cam from the living room to monitor my bedroom while I slept, but the cord was too short to get the camera high enough to see the entire room, so I improvised. I downloaded an app that takes a photo every 60 seconds, and set my phone on top of a bookcase. It's almost 7 feet tall, so it had a pretty good view of my bed and the surrounding room. Then I went to sleep. Just like before, I jolted awake hours later, feeling the same unease. I turned on the light and hurried out of bed to get my phone from the bookcase. There were probably 350 photos to scroll through. The vast majority of them were me sleeping in an empty room. It's sort of dark, but you can see me sleeping. I'd left a couple night lights on just in case anything showed up, but for the first 100 or so photos it was just me in an empty room. Then, suddenly, he was there, standing on the chair at the foot of the bed staring at me. In the next photo, from a minute later, he seems to be staring straight up at the ceiling, just staring. Then he appears to collapse on the chair. The next dozen photos are all the same. He's completely lifeless. At first I'd thought he was dead, which obviously doesn't make any sense. I looked over at the chair half expecting him to still be there, but it was empty. But then, in the next photo, he's gone. The room is totally empty again. He's gone in the next several photos, too. I figured maybe that was it, but I kept swiping through the photos. About 15 photos later, he was back, standing next to the bed. It was just like the last time I saw him. That's when my heart started to race. I didn't want to look at the rest of the photos, but I knew I had to. I swiped to the next photo and my heart sank into my stomach. He was on the bed, inches from me, staring down at me sleeping. The next one was worse. In the next photo, he's staring right at the camera. After that, there's seemingly nothing. He disappears again, and the rest of the scroll is just me alone in my room again. That is, until the last photo. Here's the final photo on the scroll. I'm at a loss for words. That malformed ear, that stringy hair. I didn't even know what to think. I looked all over my room, but couldn't find anything. And honestly, I've been so exhausted I didn't know how to process it. Even now, all I want to do is just go to sleep. So I've been away from the city for a couple weeks. I went home to Montana for the holidays, and almost immediately I started to feel better, less tired, less foggy. Up until now, I haven't really entertained the thought of moving. thinking that David would probably just follow me wherever I go. But when I left for Montana, everything seemed to improve. Like maybe David wouldn't follow me after all. Maybe he was tied to the house, not me. Being home felt safer, and I managed to relax a little bit. I even started browsing listings for new apartments back in New York. The last thing I want to do is move in the middle of winter, but after the past few months it seemed like it might be worth it. It felt like there might be a way out. The bathroom looks out into the backyard, and it was pitch black. I could barely see anything, but it's Montana, and there are animals passing through all the time. Sure enough, in the morning I found animals' tracks through the snow. I don't know the specific animal, deer, elk. The next night, the same thing happened. I got up in the middle of the night and thought I saw movement in the blackness outside. This time I stood at the window and gazed out, straining my eyes to see, waiting for them to adjust to the night. Couldn't tell what they were from the bathroom, so I got dressed, put on my coat and went outside. When I got up close, my heart practically stopped. They weren't tracks, they were footprints, really small footprints. Followed them across the backyard, but they disappeared into the ditch out back. I stood there in the snow, not knowing what to do. What could I do? Call the cops and tell them I found footprints in the snow? The last couple nights I was too scared to leave my room. If it had been David out there in the snow, it meant that he could follow me anywhere. No matter where I moved, he could find me. I felt helpless. I flew back to New York the day after Christmas. Back in my apartment, it seemed like I was at square one yet again. I've tried everything I can think of. I've sagged my apartment. I've hired a medium. Nothing has worked. And worse, I still feel him at night, watching me from different corners of my room, always getting closer and waking up right before something happens. For the past few nights, I've been using that app that takes photos every couple minutes, but nothing has shown up. For whatever reason, it doesn't seem to work anymore, but I've left it running just in case. It's picked up absolutely nothing, save for one thing, from last night. Last night was particularly bad. I felt sick and had nightmares all night. I dreamed that David was hovering in the corner by the ceiling, far off the ground. He was mouthing something, but I couldn't hear any words. Then he was hovering above my bed, staring down at me, his mouth moving faster than it should be. I couldn't move, I could only look up at him. Suddenly he plummeted downward, and I felt this huge pressure crash into my chest. I woke up gasping, the wind completely knocked out of me. I sat up and looked around frantically, heaving for air, but there was nothing. When I caught my breath, I retrieved my phone from the dresser. The photo roll showed nothing of note, save for the last photo, taken just a moment before.